My name is Claire Monroe, and this morning, I'm sipping a latte in my corner office on the 32nd floor of a Manhattan high-rise. The glass walls stretch from floor to ceiling, framing a skyline that still takes my breath away, even after 3 years. I'm wearing a cream silk blouse that feels like a quiet rebellion against the girl I used to be, the one they called lazy. I check my phone. There it is. A name I haven't seen in years, flashing on the screen like it never left my life. Ethan Carter, my cousin. I let it ring twice before answering, pretending I'm busy, even though I know I'm not. His voice is urgent, a little too polite. Claire, we need to talk. It's important. The last time I heard his voice, it wasn't polite. It was sharp, laced with condescension, telling me I'd never make it and that I was wasting everyone's time. Back then, I didn't fight back. Not out loud. I just left. Now, as I set my coffee down on my polished walnut desk, my reflection stares back at me from the gleaming surface, calm, composed, and maybe just a little amused.
He doesn't know.
None of them know. But they will. I was 22 when it happened. We were all crammed into my parents' dining room. Mom, Dad, Aunt Linda, Uncle Jeff, and of course Ethan. Sunday dinner was supposed to be warm, familiar, but that night, it felt like a firing squad. Dad set down his fork, cleared his throat, and looked straight at me. Claire, you can't keep drifting like this. You've dropped out of college. You don't have a stable job. This isn't a vacation. You're being lazy. The word hung in the air like smoke. Lazy. My cheeks burned. Ethan chuckled. He always had that smug, upward curl in his smile, like he'd already won something. You know, some of us work 60-hour weeks. You might try it sometime. I wanted to explain. To tell them about the panic attacks, the nights I couldn't sleep, the way my art had been my only anchor. But the words stuck in my throat. Mom shook her head. You need to be realistic. Dreams don't pay bills. Then Aunt Linda delivered the final blow. She's just not motivated. Some people aren't. I felt my hands shaking under the table, nails digging into my palms. That's when Grandma June, my father's mother, slid something across to me. A small, worn leather journal. Write it down, she whispered. All of it. Someday, you'll make them eat their words. No one else noticed. They'd already moved on, laughing at Ethan's promotion story. I sat there in silence, the journal heavy in my lap, the shame heavier still. That night, I packed my clothes into 2 suitcases and left. No goodbyes, no explanations. Just a note on the fridge. I'll figure out. It wasn't bravery, not really. It was survival. Because I knew if I stayed, I'd shrink into the small, obedient version of me they wanted, a version that didn't exist anymore. I boarded a Greyhound bus to New York with $312 in my checking account and that leather journal in my backpack. On the first page, in shaky handwriting, I wrote, "They said I was lazy. I'm going to prove them wrong." New York didn't welcome me with open arms. It greeted me with the smell of hot pretzels from street carts, the sound of sirens, and a shoebox apartment in Brooklyn that had one window painted shut. Rent was $800 a month. My mattress was just a thrift store foam pad on the floor. But I told myself it was fine. This was temporary. I worked 2 jobs at first. Daytime barista at a cramped cafe in Williamsburg, nighttime cashier at a 24-hour bodega. I'd come home smelling like espresso and fried food, my feet aching so bad I couldn't sleep. Still, every night before collapsing, I'd open Grandma June's journal. I wrote about rude customers, the subway delays, the way my hands trembled when I counted tips, afraid they wouldn't be enough for rent. But I also wrote about ideas. Business ideas. Sketches of jewelry designs, notes on packaging, little marketing slogans. It was during one of my late-night bodega shifts that I met Maya Thompson. She was this tall, elegant woman in her 50s, wearing a bright teal scarf and the kind of confidence you couldn't fake. She bought a bottle of sparkling water and noticed my sketchbook on the counter. "You draw?" she asked, flipping it open without waiting for permission. "These are beautiful. You ever thought about selling them?" I laughed.
Who'd buy this?
"I'm just playing around." Maya smiled like she knew something I didn't. Meet me tomorrow at 10. Thompson and Company, downtown. Don't be late. That's how it started. Maya owned a boutique that specialized in handcrafted accessories. She let me work part-time in her shop, and when she saw how customers lingered over my jewelry displays, she pushed me to create a small line. She taught me how to price my work, how to talk to clients without apologizing for existing. The first time someone paid $75 for a necklace I made, I went home and cried. Not because of the money, though I needed it desperately, but because it was proof. Proof that my ideas had value. Over the next 2 years, I kept my world small. I didn't tell my family much, just that I was doing fine in New York. I didn't post pictures of my growing workshop or my weekends at artisan markets. I wanted the work to speak for itself before they ever heard my voice again. By year 3, my designs were in 3 boutiques across Manhattan. By year 4, I launched my own online store. And by year 5, I had my own brand, Claire Monroe Designs, with a small team and a studio space overlooking the East River. I worked 12-hour days back then, 7 days a week. And I loved every minute. Not because it was easy, but because no one could ever call me lazy again. It happened on a Tuesday morning, gray skies, light drizzle tapping against my office windows. I was reviewing a shipment order when my assistant buzzed in. Claire, there's a group here asking for you. They don't have an appointment, but they say they're family. I froze for half a second before standing. Send them in. The glass door slid open and in walked Mom, Dad, Aunt Linda, and Ethan. They were dressed for business. Dad in his navy blazer. Ethan in a suit that was a little too shiny, Mom clutching her purse like it was a lifeline. For a moment, no one spoke. Their eyes traveled over the room. High ceilings, minimalist white shelves lined with my designs, framed magazine covers featuring Claire Monroe Designs, a gold plaque from the New York Artisan Awards. Ethan's gaze lingered on the oversized desk in front of me, the sleek iMac, the leather-bound planner. I watched realization flicker in his expression, but he tried to mask it. Mom cleared her throat. We didn't know you were doing all this. I smiled, leaning casually against my desk. That's because I never told you. Dad shifted uncomfortably. Claire, we need your help. Ethan's company is in trouble, and I raised an eyebrow. And you think I'm in a position to fix it? Ethan finally spoke. We could partner. Your jewelry thing could benefit from our corporate connections. Jewelry thing. I almost laughed. Instead, I walked around the desk, my heels clicking softly against the hardwood. Ethan, this jewelry thing is a multi-million-dollar brand. We ship to over 30 countries. I own 3 boutiques in Manhattan. And every single person in this building, I gestured to the floor beneath us, works for me. The silence was thick. Mom's lips parted like she wanted to say something, but nothing came out. Dad stared at the floor. Aunt Linda's eyes darted around, taking in every corner of the office, like she couldn't quite believe it. I stopped right in front of Ethan. Funny, isn't it? You once said I'd never make it, that I was lazy. Now you're here, asking me for work. His jaw tightened. I didn't mean it like that. Yes, you did. My voice was steady, calm. And maybe that was the best thing you ever did for me. Because every time I felt like giving up, I remembered your voice. And it kept me moving. I turned back toward my desk, letting them absorb the words. Behind me, the rain had picked up, streaking the windows with silver. I could feel the power shift in the room, subtle, but undeniable. Finally, I sat down, folded my hands, and said, if you want my help, it'll be on my terms. I let them stand there for a moment longer, the sound of rain filling the silence between us. When I finally spoke, my voice was even, but each word landed like a stone on still water. Before I agree to anything, I need to be clear. This is not charity. I don't hand out favors to people who once doubted my worth. Mom flinched, her hands tightening around her purse. Claire, we were just worried. No. I cut in gently but firmly. You weren't worried. You were convinced. Convinced that I was lazy. That I'd never make it. You didn't believe in me, and that's fine, but you don't get to rewrite history now. Dad sighed. We made mistakes. But you could help us get back on our feet. I leaned forward. I can. But here's how it will work. I pulled a sleek notepad from my desk and began to write, the pen scratching against the paper. Ethan, you'll come work here, 12-hour days, 5 days a week. You'll start at the bottom, like everyone else. Inventory, packaging, shipping, no suits, no titles. Ethan's eyes widened. You can't be serious. I'm dead serious. You told me I didn't know what real work was. Now you'll find out. I turned to Aunt Linda. You run our customer service line for 6 months. Every complaint, every request, your voice on the other end. You'll learn what it means to serve, not just judge. Finally, I looked at my parents. And you'll both volunteer, 20 hours a week, at the women's shelter I support in Brooklyn. No one there will know you're my parents. You'll listen to stories from women who were written off, just like you wrote me off. No one moved. I could almost hear their pride creaking under the weight of my terms. These aren't punishments, I said softly. They're lessons. If you want my help, you need to understand the work, the grit, and the humility it takes to build something from nothing. Otherwise, we're done here. Ethan looked like he might explode, but he didn't say a word. Aunt Linda avoided my gaze. My mom's eyes filled with something I hadn't seen in years, maybe shame, maybe understanding. Dad finally nodded once. All right, we'll do it. I leaned back in my chair, a small smile playing at my lips. Good. Then welcome to my world. 3 months later, I walked into the workshop early on a Friday morning and found Ethan hunched over a table, sorting chains into neat rows. His suit was gone, replaced with a simple gray t-shirt smudged with polish, his sleeves rolled up. He didn't see me watching, but I noticed the way his movements had slowed, grown more careful. Aunt Linda was in the back, headset on, speaking softly to a customer. I caught snippets. I'm sorry you had that experience. Let's fix it for you right away. Her voice had lost that sharp edge. And my parents, well, the shelter had done something to them. Mom told me once, quietly, that she met a woman there who reminded her of me at 22. She's trying, Mom said. And I realized, I never said that to you. I didn't say anything in response. Sometimes silence says more than words. That night, after everyone left, I sat alone in my office. The rain had stopped, and the city was glowing outside my window. I reached into my desk drawer and pulled out Grandma June's leather journal. The edges were frayed, the pages worn soft from years of turning. I flipped to the very first page, the shaky handwriting I'd scrawled on a bus ride to New York. They said I was lazy. I'm going to prove them wrong. I smiled. I had proved them wrong. Not just with money or success, but by becoming the kind of woman who could stand on her own, make her own terms, and still leave room for compassion. The truth was, this wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about balance. About knowing my worth so clearly that no one could take it from me again. I closed the journal and placed it back in the drawer. Outside, I could see Ethan locking up the front door, turning off the lights. He caught my eye through the glass and gave a small nod, not of defeat, but of respect. And in that moment, I realized something. They didn't just work 12 hours for me now. They finally understood why I had to walk away. Final voiceover line. They said I was lazy. Now they work 12 hours for me, and I don't have to lift a finger to prove who I am anymore.